Jamaican art is just as diverse and multifaceted as its people. It inspires and educates, entertains and stimulates, while answering important questions about Jamaican culture and what it means to be Jamaican. The works of legends like Capo and Manley, as well as newcomers alike, sell for thousands all over the world. But after the paint dries and the marble is polished, how do you go about the business of your art? Today, we take a look at Jamaica's leading and cutting-edge institutions taking charge of the business end of the paintbrush and making priceless beauty profitable for Jamaica and Jamaican artists. The chaos of creativity meets the stricture of structure on Business Access TV's CAMEO. The National Gallery, fresh off a successful staging of the 2014 Jamaica Biennial, is now on a new dynamic path, led by Executive Director Dr. Verlee Pupe. When was the National Gallery established and why?
The National Gallery was established in 1974 because it was recognized that there was a need for a national art museum. The Jamaican art movement had been growing exponentially over the years, and it was felt that there was a need for a specialized institution that would provide exposure, documentation, collection of art, and so forth. So that was the reason why it was established at the time.
Tell me about the business model of the National Gallery.
Right. Well, we are, as a public cultural institution, we are a non-profit entity. We are a division of the Institute of Jamaica and part of the Ministry of Youth and Culture. We are a public art museum. We are publicly funded in that sense that our salaries, the building, utilities, basic operations are funded from the public purse, from taxpayers' funds. But we also fund our activities from other sources. That includes our own business activities, I mean the admission fees, store fees, the gift and coffee shop, fundraising events and so on. We also approach various funders, whether it is corporate sponsors, donor agencies and so on, for funding, usually for specific projects, which can be exhibitions, which can be acquisitions, education programs, you know, the whole spectrum of activities that we have.
At this point in time, what is the National Gallery's functional purpose?
Right. Well, the National Gallery of Jamaica is Jamaica's National Art Museum. It has a comprehensive collection of mostly Jamaican art. It has a few other things too. And that collection provides an overview from pre-Columbian, from the Taino to the present day. So it really covers the entire historical spectrum, and also a very broad spectrum in terms of the various media, various themes, various artistic approaches, and so on. In addition to that, we also have regular exhibitions. Well, we have permanent exhibitions that show mainly selections from our collection, but we also have temporary exhibitions. We typically have about 4 exhibitions per year, and those explore usually various aspects of Jamaican art, sometimes also other art. Sometimes we also host overseas exhibitions. For instance, we are currently in discussion about the Haitian art exhibition, which hopefully we will have next year. We also have a branch in Montego Bay, National Gallery West, which opened last year. So we have been growing, and we do now have that representation in Western Jamaica.
How do you acquire the artwork that you have here?
Right, well, a lot of the artworks that we have in our collection are acquired by donation, either by collectors, by artists themselves sometimes. We have never really gotten a lot of capital support for the acquisition of artworks, so we have to find other sources. We have to find other ways of developing our collection. So donations is a major aspect of that. We also, when we find a work of art that we feel needs to be part of our collection, we may try to find sponsors for it, we may try to find a grant for it, and so forth. So it really is a mixture, you know, but the whole idea is that our collection should provide an encyclopedic overview of Jamaican art history. So any decision we make about what we buy is made with that in mind.
What are some day-to-day challenges that you face operating the National Gallery?
Oh, there are many, you know. Well, of course, I would say the main challenge, of course, is funding. You know, we operate in an environment of fiscal austerity. So, of course, that means that we have to be very careful in terms of how we spend money, and also we cannot expect for everything that we do to be paid with taxpayers' money. I think we've done a pretty good job with that. In fact, our exhibitions are basically funded off budget. I mean, we find other sources of funding for them. So funding is a major challenge. What we also try to do is to get the best possible value for money. So we work compared to other museums very cheaply. I mean, some of my colleagues laugh overseas laugh when I tell them how little money we spend on some of our major exhibitions. Also, we're operating here from a building which was originally seen as a temporary home for the National Gallery. So a lot of our facilities are really not quite up to standard and are not as flexible as we would like them to be to really serve the purposes of a modern museum. And that is in fact one of the big projects that we will be working on over the next few years, is to bring this building up to international standards for art museums.
Tell me about some successes of the National Gallery.
Well, the biennial, the 2014 biennial, which was held at 3 locations, which was held here at Devon House and at National Gallery West, and which also had a project on the streets of Kingston, I think was overwhelmingly successful, and I think the response to it was really positive. So we really saw a level of engagement from audiences, from artists and others that we had not seen before with the exhibitions we have had. National Gallery West itself, you know, a lot of people outside of Kingston keep reminding us that Kingston is not Jamaica. There's a lot more out there, and the cultural institutions in Jamaica have tended to be very Kingston focused. So to be able to spread our wings to Montego Bay, to operate from there, has been a very interesting experience for us, and a very satisfying experience. And what we focus on there is both local and tourist audiences. Other successes, well, the exhibition which just opened on Sunday, Explorations 3, 7 women artists. I mean, rarely in my career as a curator have I seen such a positive response to an exhibition at the exhibition opening. You know, the vibe, to use the local word, really was extraordinary. You know, and that is very satisfying, you know, because when you work on an exhibition, it is hard work, it can be very challenging, long hours, many challenges along the way, but then to see that public response to what you have done, I mean, that really is extraordinary. Mm-hmm.
So you've been charting a new path for the National Gallery. Tell me about that and why.
Right, well, as I said earlier on, I mean, one of our purposes is really to reach the broadest possible audiences for Jamaican art. And to do that, you really have to make sure that what you present is engaging, that you do it in a way that will reach the broadest possible audiences. And there are all sorts of strategies and techniques that you can follow for that. So we have been changing our curatorial practice here at the National Gallery to do just that, to reach broader audiences, to speak to more diverse audiences, because the last thing you want is for your National Gallery to be an elitist institution. You want it to reach the widest possible range of the Jamaican and other audiences.
What is one thing that you would love for the general public to know about the National Gallery that they don't know?
Right. Well, I think really my main thing is really that the National Gallery is for everybody. It's not just for a particular set of people or people with particular interests. It has something to offer to every person in Jamaica and beyond. And coming to the National Gallery is not a chore. You know, if you come here for exhibition openings for our last Sundays, it's a fun experience. You know, it's an engaging and fun experience, and if you do so, you will almost certainly come back.
Up next, Neil Lawrence talks to us about the curation process. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the quaint and freshly minted NLS. Focusing on emerging artists, they are clear about their mission to take Jamaican audiences into uncharted visual territory. So what does NLS stand for?
New local space. Officially, that's what we're registered as, but when the organization started, we wanted to just be known as NLS, and it would be the short for several possible interpretations and meanings, such as Natty's loquacious stylings. We had a long list of things, and then finally we had to get the name registered because we were really doing business. So we said, okay, well, what comes to the actual core of what the organization means and has enough of is open enough in terms of what it could mean that we could continue to evolve as an organization. So New Local Space really, we felt, really captured the spirit, which is contemporary, and it provides a platform for artists, and the space not only functions as a physical space, but it also functions as a space in terms of the World Wide Web, and we also function as a space that engages other spaces outside of Jamaica.
How did NLS come about?
It came about primarily as me being an artist. So I was moving back to Jamaica 3 years ago, and I had an art practice in Washington, D.C. So I was working in my studio there, and then I was also managing a small nonprofit gallery there as well. And moving back to Jamaica, I couldn't access what the contemporary art space was like here. You know, there was no way to actually see what it was like if there was really an actual contemporary art scene. So I wanted to create a space that could really articulate that. So as a business, I want to say first that we actually function primarily as a non-commercial space. So we are a non-commercial space that has commercial activities, right? Because we have to have a revenue. Our primary focus is not one that is commercial in terms of building community, in terms of providing a platform for artists for the public to know more about artist practice. But in terms of commercial, we have an artist residency program. Artists apply to that program, and in order to have as much of a reach to artists that we believe to be making great work, we do not want a situation where artists are actually paying to come and do their residencies. So we preferred to be more discerning about artists that we were choosing, and then fundraise for that artist.
When setting up a space like NLS, what kind of challenges do you face?
Well, there are a lot of challenges, of course, doing business period in Jamaica. But as when you're sort of creating a new market, if you really think about the nature of the space, it's a new market. We're actually the ones creating a new market. So a lot goes into that, right? You have to educate the public. So everything that you do has to have a component, a very open component where you're not afraid to answer questions that people might have. Even as somebody who's been in the field for as long as I have, even if the answers may seem obvious, you have to be there to just answer the questions.
The creative industry locally is usually undermined. People don't take it very seriously. What challenges on an everyday basis do you have because of that while trying to operate your NLS?
You know, I'd have to look back. It's a little bit hard to remember that, but I will say no, that I really, in terms of having people take us seriously, we don't really have that challenge as much anymore. I mean, we just kind of accept that there are certain things that other spaces have that we just don't have, which is public funding, grants for contemporary arts, programming grants for art spaces. These are things that we just don't have in Jamaica, but it's something that we're so used to now, and you have to just be kind of nimble as an organization with your business model, while still staying focused on what it is that you hold as, you know, the essential component and essential mission of your organization. That's something I believe you shouldn't. A lot of businesses lose focus and lose sight of that, and that's something that we prefer to stay small and stay in focus rather than just get kind of too crazy with our business model. So we set up a program where we will do the fundraising, so crowdfunding for the artists. Once they applied and they got into the program, then the agreement is that we'll do the fundraising, and we use Kickstarter to do that. So we felt, and what the assets of Kickstarter for us was that we could have an archive of all the successful projects that we had funded on the platform, and so that people could look on that and then look at our track record. So in that sense, the general public gets to function somewhat as an investor, kind of like an angel investor in some ways, but they do get a gift in return, a small gift in return of art. And we like to give people positive reinforcement for getting involved with contemporary art. So by default, they're now becoming an art collector.
One piece can go for around how much? For those people who don't know, maybe we're talking 2.6 or maybe we're talking 26,000.
Right.
So
well, as you know, or as a lot of people know, there's actually no cap on how much art can sell for. So it's I mean, you could say that about anything in the world, really, but contemporary art and art in general is notorious for not having a cap. On another hand, we have exhibitions locally and we have exhibitions abroad, and that work is also for sale. So while there might be long stretches where we're not selling artwork because the artist is in the space making work, ultimately when we do have an exhibition, sometimes that exhibition has saleable work. Sometimes it's an installation-based exhibition, and of course the work is not for sale technically, but again, sometimes the work is for sale.
Garfield Morgan is the latest artist in studio at the NLS space. Both his career and his installation are a work in progress. We spoke to him about his plans and his process. So tell me what's happening here.
Okay, so this is an installation, title of which is the TARP project. How this originated is that I actually go into the Coronation Market and I exchange tarpaulin with the vendors on the immediate outskirts of the Coronation Market. So they give me their old worn tarp, I give them a brand new one, and I take that old tarp and I incorporate it into my work. This now is an installation that will involve me using various types of tarp, different nuances, different colors, to create this installation. And really, it's about people, it's about real people. It doesn't get any more real than the Coronation Market, really.
Let's say I wanted to do my own little installation, right? How much does something like this cost me?
Well, I was able to actually erect much of the structure myself. And not every artist who does an installation actually do the work himself. So that was able to cut some of my costs. So essentially, as far as costs go, it's really the lumber, the tarpaulin, and my time, which, as far as building a career goes, nobody's really gonna purchase this installation to put in their living room, or at least I don't know of any such person. So basically, this is about getting the name out there. This is about putting yourself out there so people will know you. And of course, the more people know you and are familiar with your work, then the more inclined you are to not just get sales, but to get commissions for work to be done.
Outside of providing you a studio space, how else does NLS help you as a contemporary artist?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because I actually can't think of another space in Jamaica where I could have done something like this.
Right.
And it is instructive to know that I was here 4 months ago, and that's when I first started to investigate the tarpaulin project. And here it is that I'm here again doing an installation. Now, the first time I was here, the tarpaulin was incorporated into two-dimensional work, and here it is not have gone installation, three-dimensional, where you actually get into the space and feel the dynamics of how the space works. I teach at a tertiary institution. I do paintings on canvas. I have gallery openings in different galleries where I sell work. So there are several things that I do. I apply for grants. Part of this is to create a portfolio to apply for international residencies. And of course, you know that NLS is affiliated with international institutions. So part of it is side-eyeing those opportunities, which definitely will unfold as time goes on.
What else can be done to help those people who want to get into, contemporary art, who want to become artists in Jamaica, in the Jamaican space?
I think the onus is on them first and foremost to do the research, to think about whether this is really what you want to do. How serious are you? Because passion is good, but it takes more than passion. Because really, you're promoting a brand, and in order to do this, there are certain specific ways to go about it. You're building a career. You need to have your name out there. Part of being at NLS for me is to get my name into areas outside of Jamaica that traditionally, on my own, I probably would not have been able to do. So it's a lot of things to do, a lot of research to do, and part of the thing is attend gallery shows, see what artists are doing, get into that sphere of places where artists go and interact, listen to them, talk to them, engage them, go to exhibitions, know what's happening. Internationally, things are happening. The internet is there for us to learn from, see what is happening, and engage people, both here in Jamaica and all over the world. We have the tools to do that.
Explorations 3, 7 Women Artists, is the gallery's newest exhibition. Lead curator O'Neill Lawrence took us on a tour and told us about how much work went into an exhibit of this scale. So how many people and how long does it take to put together an exhibition like this one here?
Well, in terms of people, it's really the entire National Gallery team. I mean, normally, curators may speak about the curatorial department, which right now stands at 7 people. But it's our accounts department, our security guards, our registrar, our executive director. So it's about, you could say, the entire National Gallery staff, which is 30 plus. In terms of how long it takes to put on an exhibition like this, that's several months. I mean, we normally plan our exhibitions about 2 years in advance. This exhibition, however, was inspired by trends that we saw in our last exhibition, the 2014 biennial, and we started planning that sometime around January. So now we're in June now, so it's almost, in terms of planning and getting to it, about 4 to 5 months.
So take us through that 4 to 5 month journey of the curating process.
Well, the first thing really is a concept. Really, it starts off with brainstorming. The entire team gets together, specifically the curatorial department gets together, and we really try to see what we thought of as something significant coming out of as a trend, really, coming out of the last exhibition, the biennial. We noticed that there was a particularly strong showing from some of the female artists. And it's not to say that this is something particularly new, but it had a particular resonance, and we decided to pursue several artists who we thought had not necessarily gotten a lot of attention. These were mid-career artists, not emerging, people who had been practicing for a while. And then we just decided that we would make a selection and then present a body of work to show, a cohesive statement for each of them. There's the meeting with the artists, their studio visits, which took place over the initial stages, finding works, getting loans for some of the things that were sold by particular artists. And of course, there was the most dramatic thing that quite a few of the artists were creating work specifically for this exhibition. There's the production of the catalog, the advertising, all those things come together. I mean, that's really what happens in the beginning stages, in the mid stages, and then of course the installation process, which took several weeks, depending on the nature of the work. Some were much more complicated to install. I mean, the one that we're in front of now includes a concrete beam that had to be suspended from our ceiling. Some of the works are installations, so the artists themselves had to come in. So I guess that's essentially the process.
How important is the National Gallery to helping these artists to make a profit?
Well, realistically, we are not a commercial gallery, so that is not one of our primary concerns. In terms of what happens outside of the space and what happens with these artists in terms of their work, we are providing a platform and a space for their work to be displayed. If someone is interested in purchasing something from an artist, then really the only role we would play is putting two parties together. And I guess it can significantly help, especially if someone has, the prestige, I guess, of having presented work in the National Gallery.
So what would be your advice to a young artist who would like to be featured here?
Well,
One day.
the thing I would say is to produce work, promote yourself, because in this day and age, having a website, having a Facebook presence, Twitter, Instagram, those are the things that get your images, get your work out there. We have exhibitions like the Jamaica Biennial that it has an invited portion, or it had an invited portion where artists could submit work. So really what it is really looking out for exhibition opportunities, creating some exhibition opportunities, because a lot of young artists are no longer looking for gallery spaces specifically, they're creating their own spaces. And the thing is, when you are promoting yourself in that way, putting your work out there, you will come on our radar. And if we have a show that you fit in, then you most likely will be approached for that.
Up next, Deborah Anzinger talks to us about the NLS space.